Let us open up in prayer. And we pray. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Surely I have turned myself to thee, O Allah, striving to be upright to He who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not amongst the polytheists. Surely my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. No associate has He in this I am commanded, and I am of those who submit. O Allah, Thou art the King. There is no God but Thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am Thy servant. I have been greatly unjust in myself, and I confess my faults. So grant protection against all my faults, for none can grant protection against faults but Thee. And guide me to the best of morals, for none can guide me to the best of morals but Thee. And turn away from me the evil and indecent morals, for none can turn away from me the evil and indecent morals but Thee. O Allah, make Muhammad successful. Make the true followers of Muhammad successful, as Thou did make Abraham and the true followers of Abraham successful. And O Allah, bless Muhammad, and bless the true followers of Muhammad, as Thou did bless Abraham and the true followers of Abraham. For surely Thou art praised and magnified in our midst forever. Ameen. All righty. First things first, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that Allah came and intervened in our affairs in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. I further bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted Christ, and that the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah and Jesus in our midst today. I'd like to greet you all in the greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you all so much for coming in and joining us. Obviously, big shout out to Minister Ava, because this is why we are all here. We are super excited. So thank you so much, Minister Ava, for gracing us with your presence and your time. Sister Malika will go ahead and open up for Minister Ava, and then we'll get immediately started.
In the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the most merciful, we thank Allah for His divine intervention. And we thank Him for giving us one who came from among us, the Black man and woman in America. He is the living Christ, the eternal leader of the nation of Islam, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank Allah for the man we have in our midst today. We've been reflecting him on social media, and it's just awesome. We thank Allah for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, a divine guide and a Messiah in our midst. I'd like to greet everyone with the greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam, man.
Share the screen, and I'm going to give just a bio of Sister Ava. We are in for such a treat today. A gifted minister, attorney, researcher, and author of powerful books such as Real Love and new book, Can a Muslim Worry Overcoming Burnout? Student minister Dr. Ava Muhammad received her Juris Doctorate from the Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and is a member of the New York Bar. She currently serves as the official national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. She was recognized by Essence as one of the 30 most influential Black women in America in 2000. She has been happily married to her husband, Darius Muhammad, for 31 years, and they currently reside in Chicago with their two daughters, Sasha and Sherelle, and their grandchildren, Amir and Amira. Minister Ava has launched her new Elevated Places network on ministerava.com, where you can view her lectures, previously recorded Real Love and Real Life question and answer session 1 and 2, and much more. You can purchase Minister Ava's new book, Directing the Will, Thoughts, and Words to Get Your Life Together. Additionally, you can purchase Real Love and or A New Way of Life ebook and a hard copy at ministerava.com. And you see this QR code right here in the corner? I want everybody to pull out their phones. Everybody pull out your phone and open the camera and put your camera right on top of that QR code. So when this is over, you can go right to her website. It'll be right in your phone. Don't start scrolling now because you're in for a treat. You don't want to start scrolling now, but it's going to be right there in your phone. As soon as it's over, it'll take you right to ministerava.com. And as I was saying, we've been reflecting Farrakhan on Facebook these days, these past 4 days, and what a blessing and honor it is when there's light all over, there's darkness all over the world. We have a light, life-giving light in our midst. So I would love to bring on just a beautiful reflection of Farrakhan. What a privilege it is to be able to be named his spokesperson, which means that you trust that person to speak for you. Everyone, please lend your ears, lend your attention, lend your hearts to Dr. Minister Ava Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, man.
Sister Malika, Sister Anissa, all of you that are here today, I can't tell you how humbled I am that all of you chose to make donations, and more than that, that precious commodity called time. If we lose money, we can get more money. In fact, the Caucasian prince it. But we can never get our time back once it is gone. And so for you to give some of it to this time with me, it fills me with the utmost humility and gratitude. In the most holy name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, we give praise and thanks to Allah for coming to us in the person of Master Farid Muhammad, to whom all praise is forever due. He came among us, the descendants of slaves, here in the wilderness of North America, and raised from among us one. That one, Elijah Muhammad, is now known to be the fulfillment of Scripture. He is the exalted Christ, the messenger Messiah. And in truth, he is the Black God of this nation. Only one is above him, and that is the Supreme God, whose mind resides in Master Farid Muhammad. We can never thank Master Farid Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad enough for their love, for their mercy in their anointed, our divine comforter, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet all of you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, man. Walaikum salam, man.
Brothers and sisters, I would like to open briefly before we enter into responding to the questions. And of course, though I'm older than most of you, I'm still a student in the class. And so what I give you is from my perspective, from my perception, and from the years that I have spent working with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, first in the capacity of his administrative assistant, and then as a student minister, then as the Southern Regional Minister, and now as national spokesperson. But in all of those positions, I was and remain in the position of a student. And I only share what I learned, not because it is above all of you, but because I do recognize I am in a unique position by the exposure that I have to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I will open with words that will actually answer two of the questions that were asked in that which you submitted. One of those questions is, can you explain how Allah withdrew from the public? How was he hidden for 66 trillion years? And of course, the subject on this beautiful program, the master class. Tonight, that subject is Deportation of Moon and the significance of the city of Atlantis. Okay, so that question, can you explain how Allah withdrew from the public? How was he hidden for 66 trillion years? Also, I will answer in this opening, it's very brief. My 6-year-old wants to know what happened to the people of Atlantis. Did they survive? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan actually made some statements recently in a room that I happened to be in with a few other people, and I took some notes. And what I want to share with you is partially from those notes. He said, the journey to God is perilous. It mirrors his self-creation. Out of the darkness of space, the darkness was doing nothing. In his mind, he had to activate the nothingness of the darkness. Think about how much suffering went into everything we see around us in the universe. We should be so grateful if we are among those chosen to suffer for the establishment of the eternal kingdom of Allah. There has been 66 trillion years of suffering. What the father of Moon did was so terrible that Allah himself withdrew. He absented himself from public. This means he was so infuriated over this massive rebellion that he left us to wonder about him. And over the years and decades and centuries and millenniums, he became a mystery. The living God absented himself for 66 trillion years. And during that time, he could not be approached by anyone. After 66 trillion years, he decided to make himself known. All that lived before us, beloved, since deportation of Moon, were not able to see God. Then he came and showed himself, pardon me, he came at the end of 66 trillion years and finally showed himself to a people who have been suffering like no other. So the way in which he hid himself was by withholding knowledge of himself and of his self-creation. Now, the question by the 6-year-old, were there survivors? What the writers and scholars in this cycle of history, primarily within the last 6,000 years, and think of this, how do you factor 6,000 into 66 trillion? It vanishes. But in the last 6,000 years, the writers and scholars are actually calling Atlantis after the great civilization that was lost. Atlantis is more than a city. It is a description of what the earth itself was like prior to deportation of Moon. Prior to the explosion, it was a paradise. Who are the survivors? The survivors are the members of the original family known as the tribe of Shabazz. Shabazz means indestructible. We are their descendants. After the deportation of Moon, we had to start all over again. Asia, which is now called Earth, was a completely different planet after the explosion. This was what Minister Farrakhan called a crazed God who did this. And he didn't do this alone. It actually took generations to drill the shaft into the earth to put the dynamite in to cause the explosion. Remember, his desire was to kill everyone, including himself, and to completely obliterate this planet. He did not succeed in his plan, but the destruction that he wreaked is unequal. You have to imagine how strong would a drill have to be. And so when we woke up out of the aftermath of this explosion, we had to travel around and discover planet Earth. This is why the lessons say we found the best part to settle in. Why? Because we had to look for it. When we woke up from that blast, we didn't know where we were. You imagine a giant aircraft coming down or crashing, or a giant ocean liner running into an area just a couple of miles away from you. You may not be killed by it, but you are certainly going to be impacted. It may even take your house down. It may shatter it. You may suffer injuries, and you'll probably be knocked unconscious by the strength of the blast. That is what happened to us. Do you know, prior to Deportation of the Moon, we really didn't have such a thing as discovery. The reason we didn't have discovery is because we knew where everything was. We're the makers of planet Earth. So we didn't stumble upon anything. We knew where and what everything on this planet is. The Caucasian is a discoverer. He never made anything. He discovered DNA. He discovered Pluto. And he only discovers what he discovers when Allah permits him to do so. The final 400 years of terrible suffering resulted in a decision by the Supreme God to visit us and make himself known. He did so in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. Master Fard Muhammad possesses the knowledge of the self-created God. No one has possessed that knowledge and may outside of a very small circle since Deportation of the Moon. It was the pain and the suffering of our fathers in bondage that redeemed us. We were living under a beast in human form, and that required an unimaginable endurance. We learned to be submissive. We learned humility. We yearned for the God our ancestors rebelled against so long ago. We yearned for him. We longed for him. We had no idea what he was like. And then he showed up. How did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad recognize him? This was an awesome demonstration of love for the God to come to us, a people in a deplorable condition, spiritually and mentally dead. We had hit rock bottom. And he began in 1931 to rise us up from death. And so here we are, poised to move into the next phase of our return to our original self. So that's my opening.
Thank you. Crazy Tola. Thank you so much. So you said that you already did the 2 questions. So I'll cross those out so you don't have to go back into those. And we will start with question number 1. Can you elaborate more on this great burst of knowledge that we must insulate our minds for, lest we won't be able to handle it? Or lest we won't be able to handle it?
Yes, ma'am. The process of suffering that I referenced just now, which was redemptive. See, we needed to atone for what had been done. And this immeasurable amount of time is what it took for the time, the 66 trillion years was not so much time in which the God was punishing us, it was time spent falling. This was the fall of God. The God tribe of Shabazz, we're so powerful. It took us 66 trillion years to hit rock bottom. He couldn't raise us up until we finished falling. And so there were eons of time where we would stay at a certain level of intellectual power and greatness. We didn't just go from being gods to being slaves overnight. And certain things had to happen. Things had to happen on the planet. You notice that on the Black man's calendar, which is circular, it's not linear like the Caucasian. His is a line going straight out because that's his destiny, nothing. Ours goes in a circle, but it's like a spiral where we're to go higher and higher. Well, that rebellion called Deportation of Moon stopped progress. It remained stagnant, and then it began dropping. And you notice in our calendar, there's only a handful of events that we're taught about. How many circles of scientists were there in 66 trillion years? And there was always a chief scientist or the supreme being of that cycle of history. But that supreme being was not able to bring about our redemption because we weren't done falling. And he hid the original God, who, though his physical being at some point ended because he created the law of death for physical being. And he obeyed every single law he created. And so his physical form at some point left here. But as Minister Farrakhan said, I don't know how long he lived, but he didn't leave here until his mind was the law. This is why we worship him. Because he created the law, every law you can think of. Law of gravity, everything you can think of, positive, negative, everything you can think of, he created it. And so he's here eternally in the laws, but he put a system in place where if you're not in complete submission to him, his power begins to withdraw from you to the same degree that you are in disobedience. And so we had to come to a time when the obedience would return. And that's not just for regular people, that's the God circle too. But in any event, you notice only a few things made it. 50,000 years ago, Shabazz going into East Asia, into the jungle. 8,400 years ago, I think it was Yaqub, Dr. Yaqub, who I'm gonna mention again later. Us going into slavery, being kidnapped off the coast of East Asia that they call Africa, and the coming of Master Fard Muhammad, the birth of him and the coming of him. And now the birth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad joins those events because of the immeasurable impact of his life on us. And now there's a man in our midst evolving to that same stature. The impact of Minister Farrakhan on humanity is unequaled on this planet. One man. So you can see now why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if I had 10 Farrakhans, I would take the country, because they can't handle one. But getting back to the question, how do we keep from going off or being unable to handle? We've been given the tools. You know what I'm going to tell you? Self-improvement, the basis for community development. It's going to slow you down. It's going to make you calm. It's going to give you every single one of the tools that you need to come through this period. Mixed feelings and controversy, building human potential, overcoming difficulty, the struggle for balance, and it goes on, building the will, understanding the God within self, which can be your worst enemy, the ego, and then knowing Allah is the true center of everything. Right now, we are on rising above emotion into the thinking of Allah. How does Allah think? He thinks mathematically. He experiences emotion, but he's not controlled by his emotion. He doesn't let his emotions direct him. He directs his emotions, okay? So that's basically my answer to that.
Thank you. And sorry, I didn't know I was unmuted this whole time. I'm over here bear witnessing and stuff. The next question is, Edgar Case described those people Shabazz as being metamorphosed from a spiritual plane into human form, and that before them there was no people. How does this go in harmony with Genesis, and is it true?
Well, let me just say this about Genesis, the book of Genesis. The Bible is about the making of the Caucasian, okay? Not us. The Bible dates back 6,000 years, and the first 5 books were written by Moses, and it is about the Caucasian. Remember, Cain went and found a wife. That means there were other people there somewhere. But that story is the story of their beginning. Now, thought preceded the flesh existence. In fact, it preceded all material existence. And so when he describes them as coming from a spiritual plane into human form, and you hear, if you read our beloved Mother Tynetta's articles in the Final Call newspaper, she consistently speaks of a higher plane of existence. You know, we're in what is called the third dimension, one of the lower dimensions, because material is attractive and intriguing because it appeals to the senses. You can feel, smell, touch, hear, but in order to experience matter, you have to give up some of your spiritual qualities. And you see that in everything in life. You know, when you take dirt and make mud out of it, it becomes thicker. But now you can mold it into something. But if you take dirt and go in the other direction, it gets finer and finer until you don't even see it. It can be dust, and eventually it disappears. It escapes the physical eye, because the physical eye can only perceive what is in the material world. But we have another eye, and some call it the third eye, and that is the pineal gland. And that is our connection with the Creator. And so the spiritual self preceded the material self. The sun is matter. He willed the sun into existence. There's nothing there. But his mind, which even preceded himself, remember what we learned in Theology of Time. He said Allah needed to think, so he created a brain. And I have yet to wrap my mind around that. Because I'm saying, well, who was it that, who created the mind, the brain? But what it was, and I'm still not fully comprehending, but the brain is matter. So he wanted to house his mind somewhere, so with this structure being around it and containing it, it allowed him to focus and zero in on what it is he wanted to do. Okay. So yes, this people, Mother Tynetta said way back at the time of Deportation of the Moon, we were very tall, we were very slender, we were very lightweight in terms of the physical world. Okay, we ate very little, probably once a week or something. We were not dense like we are now. We might have had a few grapes or an apple or something, because the organism was so highly spiritual that we fed on the relationship with Allah, the self-created God. And being in that state where you spend more time feeding your thoughts than your body, then that's when you can look out and will stars into existence. That's where we speak through telepathy. You know, telephones and computers and things like this, these are like for disabled people. You know, this makes up for not being able to be ourselves, you see.
Did everybody? Okay, yeah, everyone's muted. Okay, thank you. You said something about us being tall then. I put in the chat, and here I am, 4'11". So we've a long way.
Let's not start talking about slender, because they'll probably think I was a fire plug or something. But you know, Mother Tynetta said, she said if they saw us today, they would not recognize us.
Sheesh.
They would not recognize us, because we're so different. And don't take that to mean either, though. We're not going backwards. We're going forward. Remember the circle we move in, and it moves upward. So what we will return to this beautiful physical state. And in fact, if you look at us now and look how we look coming out of slavery, you already see that process. So don't start getting hard on yourself. We're beautiful, we're gorgeous. And
Yes.
this is why white people are so envious of us. But what we're being purged of is the Satan of self that caused deportation of the moon.
Yes, ma'am. Very good. Thank you. Ready for the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
The next one was the creator a part of this family of Shabazz?
Well, yes, but it's the reverse. We're part of him.
Right.
The Shabazz family we're the direct descendants of the self-created God. And his home in this solar system is planet Earth. This is where he's from. This is his hometown, Asia. So yes, we are that family.
Thank you. How do I eradicate toxic thoughts and memories from my mind?
This is one of the reasons that we're taught to pray to the self-created God, is to begin a process of ridding ourselves of the residue of what was done to us by the Caucasian, but also to rid ourselves of the residue of rebellion. See, that same tribe of Shabazz that we're part of, don't forget, we survived the explosion. And the minister said we were on the right side of the planet to survive. But we're the rebellious people. I'd never heard him speak on whether or not that God scientist was one of us. Now, keep in mind, all of us are related, the whole original family. But specifically, the tribe of Shabazz is descended from the self-originating God. But we're trying to purge ourselves of rebellion. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the people of Mars, they live 1,200 years. And the reason they have an average lifespan of 1,200 years is because they're in submission to the laws of Islam. But he said one reason they're in submission is because though they are very intelligent, they're satisfied with where they are, whereas we are not. We're never satisfied. That can be problematic because we're always experimenting. And the fact of the matter is we create drama. Okay, and nothing could be more dramatic than blowing up the planet. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we wear ourselves out. So it's not only the environment we live in that Caucasians made that's killing us, it's us wearing ourselves out. The prophets who lived all those years, such as Noah, 960 years, Methuselah, 1,000 years. One of the keys to long life is not trying to solve your problems by yourself, but turning your problems over to the possessor of power over all things. The minister said the reason we have problems in our relationships is because we put our relationships above Allah. Your husband, your wife, your parents, your children, your best friend, all of that, they are secondary. The primary is Allah. So you and I'm saying this, I'm sure not successful doing it all the time or most of the time even, but I'm aware it's a blessing to be aware of it And then each succeeding generation becomes more capable of employing this in life. That's what brings back heaven on earth. But that's how you eradicate. Thoughts are things, meaning they have weight, and they can weigh down on you and make you depressed. One of the things I talk about in that book on overcoming burnout and Can a Muslim Worry is about 1/3 of what we worry about is what we make up in our mind. We imagine stuff. We imagine it, we work ourselves up into a frenzy. And then we react not to reality, but what we made up. So let's stop it. And this will help us eradicate these thoughts and negative memories. And don't worry about the memories, because in the hereafter, which is here, it's just the only thing left now is you and I to change our mind about being with white people. They're out of power. They have no power. They're living off of what we give them. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if we stop thinking about the Caucasian, he will cease to exist. And I asked him one time about, I think it was study guide number 9. He said, when we master self, there will be no more devil. And I questioned him about that. And he said, there will be several hundred years where white people, they'll still be on the earth for a few more hundred years, but they will be neutralized. They will have no impact on us. It'll be like they're not there. That's why the messenger said of the minister, my minister cannot be bothered. This world doesn't bother him, meaning that they can't knock on his door about an overdue bill. Or if he decides he wants to go to Mecca, he gives 2 cents what they think about it. That's what not being bothered means. It has no impact on your thoughts, your plans, your actions. You don't say, oh, I'd like to do this, but what are they gonna say? Who cares? And as soon as we get there, they will be gone. If we all decide tomorrow we want to live in Mississippi and take over the governor's mansion and the 2 Senate seats and build some land, and we decide our health. No, you ain't bringing no vaccine up in here. We don't need it. We know how to deal with our immune system. We know what we need to be doing. We got How to Eat to Live. We got interferon. It's hot down here. We're getting that vitamin D. But don't come in here. Take your vaccine and go on to North Dakota or somewhere with that.
Thank you. Everybody in the chat like, oh, she in my living room today, because we have all dealt with being way too dramatic. So the next question is, how might an explosion of this magnitude not only affect our planet, but also the surrounding planets like Mars?
Yes, ma'am. Well, the impact would have, they might get tremors. They might have gotten some tremors, and certain things happened in space, debris. But the way that God designed this solar system, planets do function within their sphere. And there are outer elements and atmospheric conditions that pretty much prevent intrusion by the actions of the people on one planet on another. But I'm certain in my mind, I'm gonna ask the minister because I think that's a great question. But I'm certain they may have felt something or
Right.
seen something different. Because again, Asia, Earth is the home of the self-created God.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I think you actually answered earlier the other question. Do the other planets go through the same deviations and rebellion that Earth goes through? I think you already said that they're in.
No, we're the only ones.
That's so sad.
You get the time out. Yeah.
The next question is, how important are crystals to the Black family and how should we use them to benefit us?
Well, again, I would refer us to Mother Ava Muhammad and her articles. I'll be so glad when those are collated and put into book form. But crystals capture sunlight, and they're more accessible than diamonds. Diamonds are also captured sunlight, but they're deeper down in the earth. And as long as a Caucasian is here, he blocks access to them and charges exorbitant fees. But that's what diamonds are. They are captured sunlight, and crystals as well. And because we are the people of the sun, we benefit greatly from wearing them, from having them in our homes. I think I heard Mother Tanetta say that when the pyramids were first built, the outer layer was a crystal substance. They looked like they reflected the sun like mirrors. Okay, all of that is worn away now. But when they were first built by our ancestors, they reflected the sun. And so this is always that it increases your sense of self and your joy in being yourself.
Very good. Thank you. You actually answered one of my questions I had in my mind, because in the cartoons, the pyramids are always shiny, but when you look at them now, they're not.
Because they once were. They once were. We're witnessing them, and we're witnessing the deterioration of the outer shell of the pyramids.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Can you explain how all the history is stored in the ether? This is the question that I came here for. This is the one for me.
Yes, and that's the gaseous substance that surrounds the planet and gives the earth, the sky, a blue appearance. Though it's not blue, because as you know, when you go up in a plane, no matter how far up you fly, it's clear. It looks blue from a distance. But our thoughts always remain encased and preserved in the atmosphere of our planet. That's how history is archived.
Your birthday gift finally came.
My birthday gift? Sorry, somebody's phone.
But that's how history, that's like our giant library. Everything we say and think is captured in the ether, and it's stored eternally for all time. But it's, again, because remember what the Bible said. It said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among men. So we're like the final product. The point of origin is the Word. And remember, Allah developed a vocabulary, he developed speech. And of course, our language is Arabic, which is a basically mathematical symbolic language. That's the language Allah thinks in and speaks. And this is why we have to have it translated for us. Now, he tolerates us speaking in this grafted tongue, but it's not a beautiful sound to him. And we tried it, as the minister has shown us. He has mastered the English language. and that makes it tolerable to the God. So as words come out of our mouth, we don't see them, but they travel into the air and they remain there. And that's why the Bible talks about a new heaven and a new earth. And the Quran talks about the hereafter, because all of the thoughts and words that are not facilitating submission to the will of God, they will evaporate. The earth is working right now to rid itself of the residue of wickedness that has ruled for 6,000 years, and the rebellion that led to the wickedness 66 trillion years ago. So this is why there are all these disasters, these natural disasters, and Allah is sending pestilence and plague. This is a cleansing process, a demolition that is going on right now. So the Bible says what? The former shall not be remembered, nor shall it come to mind. And that's the point of the other question: how do I eradicate thoughts and memories? We won't have, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we won't even remember a few generations down. We won't remember the Caucasian. It'll be he will be academic. There'll be something about them, like you might have to go in a book somewhere, but no one will have any comprehension of such a people, because he said we will never allow such troublemakers to come on our planet ever again.
Wow, that's deep. That was good. That was good. That was my question. So the next one is, and can I get a permission from you to, how many more questions would you like to complete?
Oh, yes, ma'am. And then you can pick and choose among them which ones you think are the most, that will address what I haven't addressed. Listen, what do you think about 5 more? I got to stop talking so long.
You're talking just fine. You are just fine. So we'll do about 5 more. Okay. Put hearts in the chat because she's doing so well. Okay, so the next question is, what is the relationship between the content in the 12 powers of man, Atlantis, Master Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Minister Louis Farrakhan?
The Caucasian, as I mentioned, is a discoverer. And there are many scholars among them. And you have to credit the Caucasian with his extreme curiosity and desire to know all about the Black man. But of course, that's how Dr. Yaqub made them. And so what has occurred here is the Caucasian people, the scientists among them, have come upon some residual knowledge that something happened, that another people were here. The Black man is more than someone that we write about now as a servant, that he's inferior, all these things that are said. They know better, the intelligent ones among them. And so in the 12 powers of man, the author broke down into different components, because white people think in a compartmentalized sort of way. And so he broke down, it's a wonderful way, but it's very limited. He broke down all of the aspects of the man. And 12 is the number of rulership. And that is the connection there. Again, what they call Atlantis, which means father, which means insurmountable, immovable, something powerful and strong that at the end of the day is going to prevail. No matter how long it takes, no matter how it goes down, this people will prevail. And so because they never saw or knew who these people were, they have only found remnants and symbols that we left as we traveled around the earth. And then they pieced together narratives. But all of the tribes of the original people, such as the Aztecs and the Mayans, all of them have the same story, the legend. You know, the Aztecs, in their history, they walked to what is called Mexico. Okay, now the Caucasian in his narrative says they walked to Mexico from the southwestern United States. Wrong. Wrong. They walked from what is now called Africa or East Asia, and the distant part of it, far east of it, as, remember, punishment for being polytheists. They were made to leave the Holy Land and walk across. At that time, there was still earth. It took eons when the water from that part of the earth blew out into space and water poured back onto the earth and made oceans. There was still land mass that connected continents, but it took thousands and thousands and thousands of years for it to finally yield to the water. And so at the time that they were sent into exile, into the worst part of the planet, the wilderness of North America, that was like a giant, this is a giant prison. It's a giant correctional. The United States of America. And all the rebels against God live here. Tribe of Shabazz is here, Caucasian is here, Native American is here, serving out time. And now the time is up. The Caucasian sentence is death. The Native American and the Black man return to original self. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the continent will be divided between the Black, the brown, and the red. He said the Caucasian's not in the negotiations. He's not getting anything. And you remember the minister told them that they could have one place on earth, and that's Europe. When we take over again, those of them that are left will all have to live in Europe if they want to live on the earth at all. And Atlanta, or they call it Aztlan, it's used in a lot of literature by Mexican nationalists as the name of a future state that will come into existence after the collapse of the US government. They're describing the hereafter, because all of West and Southwest, as you know, United States was what they call Mexico. The Native Americans, all of that belongs to them. All of that belongs to these people who all what you call Mexicans now, or Chicanos and Native Americans, that's basically the same people. They are the original people of this continent. They've been here 35,000 years. 35,000 years. This belongs to them. And so they're going to get it back. And because we, the original people, we developed it. We made it rich. We made it powerful. And so we're entitled to part of it as well. So when you read about walking, the Aztec tribes walking to what is now called Mexico. They didn't walk there from no Southwest United States.
Very good. Thank you. We actually have, you said you take 5 more. We actually have 6 more left.
Oh, well, now,
Can we do that bonus one? Okay.
Don't want to leave anybody.
Has the great burst of knowing come?
Yes, it has. And it's been revealed through the criterion. You got to go back and study it. That message was not only a message for us, it was a message for all of humanity. And if everyone paid attention, there was something in it for them. But what is criterion? It's a measure. It's a standard by which something's measured. So in that message, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave humanity the standard of thought, behavior, conduct that we need to meet to be restored into God's favor. They didn't submit, when I say they, the Caucasian and the rebellious of our people. What did he say? This pestilence that comes under the name COVID-19, he told them, you're not going to solve this problem. You have to go to heaven. Heaven is that part of the mind, the spiritual self that is in direct contact with the God. Because the only way out of this is submission. The only religion that God will accept now is Islam. That's the burst of knowledge. That complete submission to his will is the only way out. It's all that he will accept. So the great burst of knowing has come, and let me give you proof. It just struck me in no limited time. I'll show you an example. Look at what the presence of COVID-19, because the punishment of this pestilence, it's not the death. It has killed some people, but it's not killing people like an Ebola or a smallpox. The suffering is in the life we have to live out because of America's wicked and incompetent response. But guess what? This is the first time the so-called common people have been exposed for a protracted period of time to the so-called science of the medical profession. And now we've read enough and studied enough about this virus. I'll sit up with Anthony Fauci and debate him under the table. And so will you. I know as much about infectious disease as he does now, because their knowledge is so finite. We all know what mRNA is now, okay? We have the leveling of the playing field is proof of the burst of knowledge, because Allah has destroyed these classes of people who so-called know more than everybody else. How do you know? How can you lead us when you can't even take care of the hungry? You got 25% of America's children don't have enough food. And you cannot, this revealed you have no healthcare system. It's not, oh, COVID made the hospitals fill up. No, the hospitals filled up because you don't care for people. You dispense drugs and you did not have a pill. You got caught off guard. That's what happened. And now in their wickedness, they're in confusion. The minister said, don't take the vaccine. They said, we're going to mandate the vaccine. You can't even get it delivered. You can't even distribute it. And this is the second time a snowstorm has shut down distribution, for the second time. Allah broke a ship in half on the water the other day. I don't know if y'all saw it in the news. It was a Russian ship, one of those iron things that carry all this stuff. The wave split the ship in half.
Ooh.
A wave. And you think you're gonna fight the mother plane? Are you serious? And so, yes, the burst of knowledge is here. Because of the internet, everybody has access to information. The question is, what is the condition of your mind?
Right.
If you're a sociopath, then you process information in a sociopathic way, which the Caucasian race is sociopathic. It wasn't just Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a microcosm of the white man. He just exposed how they really think. That's why half of them can't stand him. It's not that they feel differently from him. They just hate that he's so in your face.
Mm.
And so their government is coming down. Those people that burst into the Capitol, that's serious. That's a serious division within the Caucasian race. And guess who's going to step into that vacuum? You and me. Because in all of this division, we're going to say, we want 8 states.
Period.
Period. And we earned it. You're getting off easy. So you can either give it up or you can have it taken. We're going to take it back. Because that whole southern border absolutely belongs to us. But anyway, I'm going off the deep end. So let me go.
Oh, you are God. You were right on time. Because we want all the hot states. We don't want the cold ones. Too cold. The next question is, what are the best books for our children to read about this history?
You know, first of all, we should be reading to them in the womb from our books from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Theology of Time, I think, should be some from among us, our educators of children. I would like to see them begin to take out excerpts from sections, because our children love these dramatic but they have to be true. And the Deportation of Moon is true. And not only would it excite them, but it will enlighten them, and it will make them know, number one, how powerful we are. Number two, it will make them understand the importance of obedience. See, parents are having an impossible time extracting obedience from our children because the world is in a state of rebellion. And so as parents, we have to be the example of obedience to Allah. But I would say theology of time and what the messenger writes about deportation of Moon in his books. And then I think we should, though, pull those together and make picture books for the very young, the babies, the 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and start explaining that history now. We have writers among us. Why aren't we writing about this? If Edward Case and all of these white scholars, they learned things and then they wrote the narrative. So we need to gather out of what Minister Farrakhan has said, and then we write the books. Because other than that, we're going to have to take things that exist and then eliminate truth from falsehood. So it's better coming from us. And what I would love to see to you who are in that industry or interested in it, I'd love to see a feature film about Deportation of the Moon. We need to tell our story.
That's right.
Can you imagine that on the big screen?
That
And
would
have
be
a
beautiful.
series, just like they had Star Wars, again, copying from our history. Everything they put on the screen, somewhere at the root of it is us. Everything. But we need to tell our own story.
That's right. Yes, ma'am. We actually have Brother Daryl on the call. He's one of our videographers and what's that called? People that make movies. So get on it, Daryl.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Please. Our next question is there a main source or any sources you would suggest as a good reference to the similar stories of Atlantis told from different areas of the world, such as Mayans, Portuguese, North Africa, etc.?
Well, you know what? When I gave that lecture back in the day, in 1998, we didn't have Google, okay? We didn't have YouTube and access to different perspectives that are available now. And so I would say do some research on the internet, because what it does is it reconfirms for us what we're being taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then from that, going back to the previous question, we can share these things. Like when they get geography or these things in a sort of a boring way, wouldn't it be much more interesting if we taught about the Mayans and the Aztecs, rather than just say Mexico, some country, south border where we go on vacation, or, you know, come on, let's talk about what really happened before the Caucasian came. He's only, what did they come out of the cave in the last 2,000 years of their, they lost most of the 6,000 years in the caves.
Mm.
And if it hadn't been for Musa, they'd probably still be there.
Mm.
They're what my daughters call slow, okay? So but maybe, I think in the coming weeks, I'll be able to post some things for you, because you got me, now you got me, Sister Anissa, all fired back up over there. So I'm gonna do some more research myself and share what I find. We'll do a list of references.
Praise be to Allah. Very good. Then you answered the next question, so I'll go to the next one. How do we regenerate the ether and renew a tropical land? Is it something we can do in our lifetime? We are tired of the cold.
Well, there's nothing spooky. We got to start moving in that direction.
Say less.
See, that's why we got to go. I'm so serious. We better start thinking about moving to Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. And by the way, their capital is named Atlanta. That's where I gave this lectures. When I was over the southern region, I was explaining the roots of Atlanta. That's very significant. Maybe that's where we're supposed to go and have the new capital, the initial capital of the Nation of Islam, because we're going to fly our flag. We're going to follow our constitution. We're going to follow our dietary laws, our way of life, our educational system, the way we eat and dress, and what we call a good time. You're not going to be able to go to Hooters in our land, okay? So yes, we have to, but we really have to start moving back toward the warmth, because as the minister pointed out in his message to the Nubian leadership in December, but people are not dying from COVID, they're dying with COVID. We're dying from a compromised immune system. And the COVID is bringing that out. It's manifesting a long-standing state of emergency that was being ignored. And that is, we can't live here. We survived, but we'll never flourish. As long as we live in the wilderness of North America, which Master Fard Muhammad said all the atoms over it are dead. However, if we were to move and cluster in a certain area so that that area would be filled with what? Muslims, people in submission to Allah's will, the weather will change, the air will change. The weather does not rule us, we rule the weather if we're in submission. The weather didn't make Allah, Allah made the weather. And so we will have clean air. We will have sunshine. But as he has taught, there are billions of vitamins that you get from sunlight that you cannot get from food or supplements. Only direct sunlight will give it to you. It's like these teachings. There's a certain knowledge you can only get from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I don't care where you go. If you don't come to Jesus, you're not going to get all the truth. So we don't live in the sun. That's why he's styled as a light-giving sun. Because he's a source of health that there is no other equal to it. You see, so let's start moving. Let's not rear our children in this cold. I know I've had, and at my age, please, even though I don't mean to say I'm, because you know, you think a certain way.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, in reality, this starts to wear on your joints. That's why that's in the lessons. Can't even walk up to the store. We should not be here. We are not from here. We need to go home. And so to get prepped to go home, I watched the NFL. I like the Kansas City Chiefs. And they were saying today, they're practicing, the Super Bowl is going to be in Florida. So they said they've been practicing indoors with the heat turned up to get them prepped for playing in Tampa Bay. Well, we need to get prepped for returning to our original land. See, we can't just go, we just can't show up there. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Assalamu alaikum? No, we have work to do on ourselves, and that land has to be cleared out for us to come home. All the disbelievers will be removed. That's why the so-called Holy Land is being torn apart, because they're not over there practicing Islam. Only a few of them, okay? So when we say the best part of the planet, Mecca, it didn't look like it looks now before Deportation of the Moon. All that sand, we didn't even have deserts before Deportation of the Moon. Everything was beautiful and habitable, lovely, awesome. Perfect temperature. We didn't have seasons. Everything was great all year round. The explosion caused all of that. We didn't have no polar ice caps. White people ski, not us. We ain't into that. We like beaches.
Exactly.
Okay.
We'll do 2 more questions because I don't want to hold you any longer. In Deportation of the Moon, you mentioned that we would remember our past lives. In what context did you mean that in?
Yes, and that's from Mother Tynetta taught us that some of our people from the time of deportation of the moon prior to that, they saw, I don't know if they saw the exact event, but they saw rebellion coming. They saw punishment coming. They saw some protracted suffering, and they saw us disintegrating, degenerating into something other than ourselves, but then we would return to ourselves. And she said some of us, of our ancestors, wanted so much to be present for the return to our original self and the restoration of the beautiful relationship with Allah that we lost. They projected themselves into us. So through us, they can be here. Because you know, we're not just some single disconnected entity. We're the product of something. If we weren't, we wouldn't be able to benefit from the suffering if we weren't connected to it. So they're here in us. And that's what I mean by past lives, all coming together into a new life. But that's how you gain immortality, is through your offspring.
That's right.
But there were still, everybody wasn't in rebellion. Shabazz and those with him were they had the same categories of people we have now. You had the weak Muslims, you had the disbeliever in one sense, not in the same way because we were all gods, but in terms of the level of acceptance and rejection of obedience. Because keep in mind, this scientist, this God scientist, the father of Moon, he, not only was he not in submission to the originator, he wanted everyone to submit to him. And the minister said something preceded this desire to have everybody speak the same dialect. He said it's deeper than that. You know how you have the straw that broke the camel's back? But there was something far more deep-seated going on with him. To put something of that magnitude into motion. Destroy a planet? Are you serious? Blow a third of it away? And you remember we were taught that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked Master Fard Muhammad, can we bring the moon back? Well, actually, Earth was called Moon then. Okay, we're actually where we are was called Moon. And now we call that satellite because it stayed within the gravitational pull of the planet. And they say that when it first went out into space, it was much closer. It didn't immediately go out 200 and some thousand miles. It was very close, like it was like this giant object that loomed over what we call Earth now. So that had to be a strange feeling. You see how the impact on us psychologically and emotionally. I mean, you imagine how people are traumatized by a car accident, okay? Or you know, surviving a very serious car accident. And you come out of it hurt, you come out of it blown away, say, all I remember is suddenly, well, that's how we were. And I remember him saying, the minister, he said, when we woke up, we had a different planet. And until he said that, I never thought about that. My mind never had gone there. So we were knocked unconscious, physically, spiritually, intellectually unconscious. So already we're being prepped for the fall. And again, it doesn't show up immediately. It's like when someone starts losing their mind, the people around them don't necessarily see signs of it right away, but it's something going on inside. And the minister said, right before, when someone is going insane, the last thing that happens before insanity kicks in is the loss of the ability to keep up appearances.
Mm.
And look at how when you come in the nation, it's reversed. The first thing we're taught is our appearance. We're immediately put in a garment,
Right.
and a headpiece and a suit and tie. Immediately. We haven't had time to have a dramatic root change in behavior, but you start out by appearing sane.
Mm.
You look acceptable to the God. And over a period of time, you start to act the way you look. So I don't know where that came from.
That came from the God, Minister Ava. That was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Was that regenerate the ether and renew?
That was the past life one.
Oh, the past life. Oh, wow. I went way up there.
And then the last one that we will do is the question that that you really appreciated is in the Deportation of the Moon lecture, you spoke about how the nation is not in the mosque, but houses of worship are contained in nations. You've also mentioned recently the need for Black people to get out of merely knowing the gist of things, quote unquote. What role does negative versus positive reinforcement play in qualifying ourselves to increase our nation's capacity to solve more and more complex problems in each of the 9 ministries and becoming a model for separation?
That is so good, and I'm only going to be able to give a little shot at it, and then more and more, I guess, as time passes, but not taking too long. We all need to come together and really work this out. But when I saw negative reinforcement, what I thought about is Islam itself. And our beloved brother, may Allah be pleased with him, Minister Ava Muhammad, was a mentor to me because I was put in the ministry without ever going to a ministry class or training or anything. Minister Farrakhan just put me up there one Sunday, and I was like Scooby-Doo, like, okay. So I learned on the job, and he was one of those that helped me. And he spoke about Islam and negative reinforcement. He said, Allah only wants to see a reflection of himself. When he looks at you and looks at me, he wants to see one thing: a reflection of himself. So how do we go about becoming that? It's not by what we add, it's by what we take away. It's negative reinforcement. That's what the restrictive law is. The restrictive law prohibits behaviors, as a result of which we become increasingly acceptable to Allah. We come in the nation, we're not asked, oh, give us $10,000 and we'll send this to your house. No, you're told to do away with things. Don't eat pork. Don't eat scavengers. Don't drink alcohol. Don't smoke cigarettes. Don't eat more than one meal a day. Don't stay out late at night. Don't use profanity. Don't commit adultery. Don't commit fornication. Don't. He said, when you look up an address on a computer, what the computer does, it doesn't look for the address, it begins to eliminate everything that's not the address. So if you put 7351 South Stony Island and ask to locate it, it's going to look for 7. It's going to look for 3, 5, and 1. If a 2 comes up, it's going to eliminate it. If an 8 comes up, it's going to eliminate it. If the letter Q comes up, it gets eliminated. Because I want 7351 South Stony Island. Allah wants a Muslim, one who is in submission to his will. The positive reinforcement comes after the negative reinforcement. Because once we do everything we can to eliminate those things that are other than Allah and stand in the way of our development because of that, then we can begin to add in. You're making room for what he does want. Now, we're already that. We don't have to go find it. Master Father Muhammad said, I'll give you the whole scope of my teachings in 6 words. Accept your own and be yourself. And what is yourself? A righteous Muslim. So you don't have to move or go anywhere or do anything crazy. Just be you. As they say, do you. So eliminate everything that's other than yourself. Then you become God. And this is the way we build a nation. The mosque is not the nation, the mosque is in the nation. The mosque is the spiritual center of the nation. The nation is all of the aspects of life. So the 9 ministries, as he said, which are the 9 organs of the human body, headed by the 10th system, which is the brain, these are semi-autonomous organs and systems, but they're interdependent, meaning that the liver does what the liver does. It has its own identity. Nobody's trying to take its identity. It has certain functions that no other organ can perform but the liver. But what good is the liver if the kidney goes down? You see, what happens when the cardiovascular system goes down? The immune system, which is what we're experiencing right now. If you have a strong, powerful immune system, then any virus or bacteria that invades you, I don't care whether it's corona or whatever it is, if it invades your system, we have the most complex, elaborate, powerful defense system on earth. It will defeat anything because Allah created it to do that. However, when we mistreat it by following the rules of the world of Satan, then that system becomes compromised. It's like going into the Capitol on January 6th was not properly secured. And could it have been because, as it came to light, some of the very members of security, of the military, were actually with the invaders?
Mm-hmm.
Agents, hypocrites? So we have to eliminate on every level, on the molecular level, cellular level, physical, intellectual, psychological, and spiritual. We all have to work hard to eliminate everything around us or about us that is not what Allah wants to see.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much, Minister Ava.
Thank you all.
I do not take it lightly that you gave us more of your time.
I love you. Love all of you.
I love you too.
I enjoyed this. I feel like I'm taking all of your time up.
You are not. You are not. You got brothers on here like, I gotta go to FOI class, but it's getting too good. So thank you so much. I want my mother to unmute everybody so we could give a takbir. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Thank you so much. Allahu Akbar.
Thank you.
Allahu Akbar.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Too.
Man. Yes.
Love you more.
Allahu Akbar.
Love you.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much. Is there any closing words that you would like to say? Because I don't have anything to say. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Minister Ava.
Sorry. I was just going to say, we are going to have Savior's Day, and we're going to do almost everything we normally do. It'll just have to be virtual.
Yes, ma'am.
Allah willing, next year we'll be south.
No,
we got to
really.
start moving. I'm ready to move. I am so serious.
You know, Sister Rona trying to get you out anyway. We are through with the North. You made everybody pack their bags. We got all of our stuff ready.
Yes,
thank you so much. If you're on the call, because I know some people were confused with how the donation went, like they're supposed to do registration first if I was going to request. If you have not done that yet, I'm going to put it in, I'm just going to put it in the chat right here. It's Ava Karen.
It's yes.
Ava Karen, that's it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so.
All one word.
Yes, ma'am. So you could send it right to Ava Karen.
Thank you.
And if you need the PayPal, her PayPal is Ava Sasha at AOL.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm over here trying to type it and say it at the same time, and it's not working out.
I'm sitting here tracking my daughter's flight back to Howard University. She was in LA flying back to DC. So, you know, Black people.
And if you need her books, ministerava.com. So Malika, if you could cue up her the thing that you did in the beginning so they could take the picture and do the thing.
So you just take your phone, put it on the camera, and then put your camera right to that QR code, and it'll go straight to the site.
And the site is ministerava.com. In case you're actually on your phone doing it, then you can't do that. Like myself, I'm actually on my phone. So ministerava.com. So again, thank you so much, Minister Ava. And I don't want to keep you any longer because I know that you are at Mosque Mariam and you got to get going. So we will close. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
We will
you.
close out in prayer. Sister Jabez, can you close out in prayer?
Okay, yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Whew, my goodness. Attention prayer. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O Allah, we beseech your help and we ask for your mercy, for we believe in you and trust in you for all that we need, and we are helpers in your cause with your apostles, so please grant unto us success. O Allah, we bear witness that there is no God but you, who came in the person of Master Prophet Muhammad, the true and living God, to whom all praise is due forever, that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is your divine Mahdi, and the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is your divine Messiah, Jesus in our midst today, reminder and servant among us. And it is in these great and holy names we pray. Thank you so much for this opportunity to learn. May Allah bless us to internalize the learning that we may continue in the process of becoming gods ourselves. Amen.
Ameen. Praise be to Allah. Thank you all so much. I love you all so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I need my clothes to be mom.
Walaikum salam.